I don't find the ones that are psychopaths, hard work, are actually the most successful. It's not the case. I find the ones that are eclectic people that have other pursuits that are nothing to do with the business they're in, that do crazy stuff. Maybe it's riding motorcycles in the desert. I don't know. These are the examples
Yeah.
I'm just using because I'm living with them. And say, look, I've got to go and ride a bicycle across the desert. Okay. How many days are you going to be gone? I don't know, maybe 3. Okay. Is that anything that is immediate? That tells me that if you look at the year's outcome from that person, you're going to find that they probably outperformed. You want the eclectic ones. You want the ones that are not just robots working. It's going to be cheaper to get a robot if you want a robot. I'm going to buy those too when they come available. But I want people that have creative and unusual solutions that, just think outside of the box. It's really interesting that way.
The other thing that everybody wants to hear from you about is how to keep and grow your wealth. Because, making wealth, I kind of understand through the lens of entrepreneurship, take a big bet, hopefully have an exit or, draw a dividend or make profit from a company you've started. But in terms of what you did and your relationship with your money, what is the most important things for someone to understand who's just trying to grow their money? Who wants to become...
No, I learned this from my mother, and I actually built a whole indexing company around it. When I was very young, I found out something so she was fiercely independent. She's one of 3 daughters of Lebanese descent. My Irish father, my original father, biological father, was Irish. She didn't. Yeah, there she is, Georgette. So I haven't seen that picture in a while.
Okay.
She was very independent, and she never ever wanted a man to control her life. So she started at an early age when she was working for her father. They paid the girls, the family all worked there, and she worked in the accounting department and billing, but she got paid cash. And so she would take 20% of that cash each week, and she would put it into 2 asset classes: stocks that pay dividends, large cap stocks, and telco bonds. 7-year telco bonds paid about 6.5% to 8% back then. She bought the long bonds, and she had that portfolio for 55 years.
Wow.
She never spent any of the principal, only the dividends and the interest. She put my brother and I through college. And, she took care of her family and her sisters when they fell on hard times. But her rule is very simple: no more than 5% in any one stock or bond of the portfolio, and no more than 20% in any one sector, ever, ever. So when a stock ran up past 5, she'd sell it down. This is not genius. This is just diversification. And when she passed, and I was the older brother, and I saw the portfolio, because the lawyer said, listen, you got to come down here. You're the executor of her will. And I said, yeah, but my mother was middle class. He said, no, you got to come down here. She kept her account secret from both of her husbands. She wanted her own independent money. And back then you could do that. And damn, what that portfolio did, the performance was extraordinary. It was beyond any hedge fund guy or anything. 55 years. When I saw the results, I said, that's it. That's how I'm going to invest for the rest of my life. Exactly the way Georgette did. No more than 5% in any one stock ever, no matter what it is, and no more than 20% in any one sector, with the exception of real estate, which is a very large part of what I have in net worth. and it's a third. So that's broken the rule, but there's reasons for that, and I'm very happy with that portfolio. But that if everybody that's listening to this does that, they will maintain and grow their wealth. But it's people bet, they make big bets. They think they're so damn right. They put half their net worth into one sector or one stock and they get wiped out. That's what happens.
So would your mother pick the stocks herself, or would she invest in an index fund, or
She indexed.
she used it? So, okay.
Even back then, they didn't have ETFs, but they had mutual funds that said the only stock in this mutual fund it doesn't have any debt and it pays dividends. Whatever. They were very rudimentary back then. They were just collections of stocks. I think she had like 28 names or something like that in the portfolio. But if you looked at them, they were really boring large cap names. But they were sectorally diverse. There wasn't 10 sectors back then. There wasn't 11, there was 10. So they didn't have real estate as a sector. So, but I looked at it saying, wow, these are really boring.
You learned a lot about money from your early upbringing, right? From that early context.
Yeah, because what she said to me was, look, I even do this today with wealthy people call me up all the time and say, look, they get divorced. This very wealthy woman got divorced recently, and she said, look, I'm divorcing, and she was a billionaire. She was divorcing. She was more multi-billionaire. And so she said, look, I'm getting everybody's calling me up to be my advisor because I'm separating from my husband. It's all his guys that did all the management of our family wealth. Would you be my advisor? I said, no, I don't do that. But, I can just give you some basic advice, and you can hire people that stick on the mandate. And I gave her Georgette's strategy, but I had her do something else too. I said, let's get a piece of paper. You're a billionaire. Let's put everything on this piece of paper on the last 90 days that you've spent on, whatever the hell it is, I don't care. And let's put on, no computer, no spreadsheet, on this, let's look at all the income that you've made off your portfolio as it stands now, whether it's gold you have or land or stocks or bonds. Let's just do a gut check on, do you outspend yourself? She said, why would I give a shit? I said, wouldn't you like to know how much money you're burning living your lifestyle the way you live it? Just out of interest. Maybe you have enough for the rest of your life, but maybe you want to give some of it to your family one day or give it to charity. Wouldn't you like to know? Because one of my rules is never outspend yourself on any 30 or 60-day cycle, ever. Just ever. I don't have any debt. So I'm very careful about that. And we went through this little thing. She freaked out. She was pissing away money, just bleeding hundreds of thousands of dollars a week. I mean, I don't care how rich you are. You don't want to be stupid. And I said, does that shock you? One or two things has to happen. I mean, you're losing millions of dollars a quarter. Like, why? Why? Like you've had nobody restrict what you do with your money, because you're going to have to sell stocks at some point, or sell gold, or sell land to keep this up. And are you really that happy? Like, what's all this shit you're buying? Like, what is all this crap that you don't need? It was an eye opener for her. So my point is, most people don't do that exercise. I don't care if you're only making $56,000 a year or 68, the average salary.
So are you in the camp that you shouldn't spend money on the small things, like the coffee? If you don't need it, you should make the coffee at home. Is that kind of...
I can't stand it when I see kids that are making 70 grand a year spending $28 for lunch. I mean, that's just stupid. It's just, think about that in the context of that being put into an index and making 8 to 10% a year for the next 50 years.
What's an index for someone that doesn't?
So, okay. I mean, I even built an app for this purpose, just so I could, there's many apps out there, you don't have to use mine. Mine's called Bean Stocks, but you just allocate 15% of your salary and it automatically puts it into two buckets, some stocks and some bonds. The stocks are ETFs, exchange traded funds that just track the S&P 500. Very simply. Mine's
the S&P 500 is the top 500 stocks.
Yeah, and so it's just, people that tell me, oh, I can beat the S&P, I can pick stocks. They're so full of crap. Not over the long period they can't. So it's better, you might as well just own ETFs. I have a version of the S&P that I designed with other people that strips out all the crappy balance sheets, but that's just me. You can just buy the index that you want, the ETF.